Guys, welcome back. It is Racer X, and for those of you that are not aware, the other day I actually picked up a new daily driver. You can see it behind me here. It is a Subaru WRX STI. Yes, this is actually the STI. It doesn't have the big wing on it, guys, so maybe it's a little more understated, but that is in fact what it is. It is a 305 horsepower all-wheel drive car. And as you can see, I've also got my 1,000 horsepower Hellcat back here behind me. So I thought, you know what? It might be fun to pair these two up. And I know what you're thinking. Obviously, how in the world are you going to compare these two cars? They're so different, big difference in horsepower. Well, give me 1 second and I'm going to show you. Also, guys, if you are new to the channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down here in the corner, and we are off. We got the 1,000 horsepower Hellcat. For those of you that have been following my channel for a while, you're probably aware I am not much of an import guy, but this car had me intrigued. I needed something new and something fun, something that would serve a lot of purposes for daily driving, and I felt like this one fit the bill quite well. Now, for those of you out there in the STI community, or even just the regular WRX community, you know the thing that makes these cars so darn cool, they have a super revvy 2.5 liter horizontally opposed engine with a turbo on it. 305 horsepower is nothing to sneeze at when you're talking about a car that weighs 3,400 pounds. And on the street is really where these things do all their damage. Yes, they are all-wheel drive, and they've got a pretty advanced little all-wheel drive system in there, and it is a pretty darn cool car. So I thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and check out and see what this thing really does 0 to 60 versus the ultimate monster here, the 1,000 horsepower Hellcat, because we're talking about a rear-wheel drive car versus a all-wheel drive car, even though it only has 300 compared to 1,000 horsepower. So you're talking over 3 times more horsepower in the Hellcat. Can the WRX hold its own against the Hellcat 0 to 60 on the street? I think the results of this should be pretty darn interesting. We're going to find out how it goes. Obviously, the fact that this thing is a manual, the WRX, that is going to add another layer of complexity to this little test. So I'm going to see if we can't get a little app downloaded, because the WRX actually does not, it doesn't have a 0 to 60 timer in it like the Hellcat, and I want to make sure I'm using the exact same thing to measure both cars so that everything remains equal. It should be a fun little test. Just real quick, it is worth noting just how different the motors are in these two cars. I mean, they literally could not be any more different, really. I mean, you're looking at that 2.5 H configured motor here, and of course you've got a turbocharger in there, and then of course as we look at the Hellcat, you're talking about a 6.2 liter supercharged motor in this one. So obviously V8 versus a 4-cylinder on this one, and of course you've got the big supercharger sitting on top of that one, which is actually about the same size displacement as the motor is in this car. So the comparisons on these two are just, it's crazy to even compare these two, but it does bear the conversation. So we'll give it a shot. On the WRX, it actually has 18-inch wheels with 245 with tires on there. On this particular car, 300 horsepower and all-wheel drive, those are more than adequate to just grab the street and go. That car really claws the road. Now, things change when we talk about the Hellcat. So, yep, I've got it here behind me. I have 305 drag radials here. I'll go ahead and show you those. Those are 555Rs. Those are still not nearly enough meat in order for me to to stick the power. So in order to make it at least somewhat competitive, I think I need to go ahead and change this over to my 17-inch race tires, my ET Street Rs, and I feel like that's going to give the Hellcat at least a little bit of a fighting chance. It is so hard to put 1,000 horsepower to the ground on the street. I've got to do something to try and keep that car kind of glued down, and so that's the next thing. I'm going to go ahead and change the tires out, and then we'll go make some runs and see what really happens. Okay, big tires are on the car. Now it's time to go out and see how it's going to perform 0 to 60. Now, I have done this test before. Some of you guys may remember that video, but it's going to be a little different with this app that I downloaded, because I just don't know how accurate it is. So obviously we'll be able to get a baseline with this car too. So I'll show you guys what app I used. So I'm going to speak up because I've been told that I'm pretty hard to hear when I'm in the Hellcat. Yes, this car, it is loud. So anyway, I did manage to find an app, and it's called speedometer, of all things. But it was free, and it is essentially a timer. It measures like 0 to 60. It measures eighth mile, quarter mile, all that kind of stuff. And obviously it works on GPS. So how accurate it is, I really have no idea, but it should work the same for both cars, and that's kind of what we're trying to measure here. So we'll get some baselines. Now, previously when I did this test on the Hellcat, I think the best that I was able to get on the street, mind you, was a 4.1, and that was actually with the bigger tires, the ET Street Rs on the back. Now, I want to qualify this. The street I'm using is not a well-prepped surface whatsoever. It's actually got, it's got some dips in it, it's got some cracks in it, it's secluded, which is good, but it's not an ideal surface for racing. But I just want to make sure that you're aware that, the conditions are not perfect for this test, but it should be an interesting comparison nonetheless. I am approaching my my spot here. So what I found last time by doing this test was that it really makes sense to keep this car in street. The car just makes so much power, and it's so hard to get this car to plant. It just wants to spin, even with the bigger tires on the back. It just makes so much torque. So we're gonna leave everything in street this time and try and get the best time we can. I also did turn on the car timer. I've got my handy dandy little acceleration thing here, and we'll see how accurate it is as well, and we'll get a baseline on this car. We're gonna see how it goes. Let's go ahead and send it and see what happens. Here we go. First gear start. Actually, I'm sorry, we'll start in second gear on the Hellcat, and I feel like that makes the most sense, and we'll see what happens. Here we go. Okay, never got to, I thought I got past 60 miles an hour. It looked like I did. Turned out I was just spinning. So let's try that again. According to this, it went 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, but I don't think I ever got quite to 60. So we're gonna start again. Okay, once again, we'll start in second gear this time. 0 to 60. Here we go. Makes so much power. It says 4.8 on the dash here, and according to my little timer, that was 6 seconds. That is not accurate. What can you do? So 4.8 is what it says here. That's not very good, but what can you do? The car just makes so much power. Well, I'm going to give this one another shot here with the Hellcat. This thing doesn't even give like half time, so I'm not real sure that it's going to work out that well. But we're going to go ahead and give it one more send here and see how it goes. So once again, second gear, we'll go ahead and just keep it in drive, street mode, big tires on the back. Here we go. Just skates all over the place. Boy, and that's like half throttle. Man, this car makes some power. Good night, this thing is ridiculous, and I like it. All right, so let's see how we did on that. It says 4.5 on the car. According to this, 6 seconds. I can't figure that one out to save my life. What do you do? Okay, well, apparently I'm just going to get 6 seconds, which is not even close to being accurate. I may have to get like a V-Box or something like that at some point to get a better gauge of this. But you know what? We got a baseline. We'll see what happens with the WRX when we actually go back and race it. Back there, I should say race it, but it's going to be a 0 to 60 pull. So let's head back and do that now. Well, I am now aboard the Subaru WRX STI, and man, what a different feel to driving this car. It is so night and day, just from the way it starts, the way it sounds, the way you sit in it. It's just, even when you get in it, I mean, you're just so much closer to the passenger seat. And I mean, the feel, the look, I mean, it just could not be more different. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just, as I said, it's different. And this car is so much smaller than the Hellcat. The Hellcat looks like a big, gigantic bruiser compared to this one, which looks just a little more dainty. But you know what? This little motor in this car is packs quite a little punch. I'm trying to think of a good analogy to compare these two cars. It's almost like if you know UFC and Ultimate Fighting, you know, the Hellcat is sort of your Brock Lesnar, just big and powerful, bruiser, menacing. And you know, this car is almost like a Jose Aldo or a Colin McGregor type feel. Way different styles. They're just different. I don't know, man. But you know what? There's fun to be had in both. So let's run back to the spot here. Let's see what this one will do 0 to 60. I will say that when you're playing with the drive modes in this car, they make a huge difference as well, even though this is a manual car. Like, for example, I drive the car in Sport, which I really like. And then when you switch things over to Sport Sharp, right down here, man, I tell you what, this thing really does come alive. Everything just really sharpens up, it crispens up, it feels quicker. And for this test, I have got to go, especially knowing that it's all-wheel drive and it's not really gonna spin, we're gonna go Sport Sharp on the setting here, and we're gonna give it a run. Got my handy dandy little speedometer app ready. Doesn't seem to be terribly accurate, but you never know. We'll give it a shot either way. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and put the setting here in Sport Sharp, which I think is the most aggressive setting that we have here. Of course, we're in a manual car. Everything's ready to go. Let's see what she can do 0 to 60. Like I said, Hellcat, even though it registered I think a 4.5, this app was saying it was like a 6. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. But let's give it a go and see what happens here. Okay, car feels strong. Boy, it's a little hard to get the car out of the hole. I will be the first to tell you that. And according to this, 7 seconds. That's just sort of wacky. So like I said, the Hellcat actually was 6 seconds, I think is what it said. This says 7 seconds, so we know it wasn't as fast. I will say this car is a little bit hard to get out of the hole. So maybe I'll give it a little bit more RPM this time and see what happens. It's pretty cool. You can hear the turbo like blowing off under there. It is definitely giving it the business. So let's try it one more time to see what happens here. Here we go. So same thing, first gear. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit more RPM. Here's the thing, guys. I'm not trying to destroy my clutch on this. So, like, we'll see. This car is a little bit difficult to get out of the hole. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But let's try it again and see what happens. No, it's boggy. Good night. All right, let's give it another shot here. Maybe a little bit more RPM. Let's reset this. Try it again. All right, sitting still. And there's 60. I mean, it feels strong. Once you actually get moving, the car feels really strong. I mean, it certainly feels planted. There's no question about that. You feel very, very in control. It inspires a lot of confidence. Obviously, you can tell that the car doesn't have nearly the power that the Hellcat has, and it doesn't. But in terms of the power that it has, it puts it down well. So something to be said for that. 7 seconds, according to this. So that's really interesting. That's an interesting result. Okay, the app is ready. I'm going to give it another shot here. Feels like, you know, obviously this car is relatively new to me. I mean, I've only had it a couple of days, and the thing is so much fun to drive. It's very rewarding. You can definitely feel that it's so much smaller than the Mopars that we own. It just feels very darty, and it's a true joy to drive. Straight line power. Obviously, it doesn't have, it's way short compared to the Scat Pack at 180 horsepower less. And of course, as we know, the Hellcat has like 3.5 times the power, and you can definitely feel it when you drive it. But I mean, it does put this power down well, and it still feels quick. I'm having a hard time getting the thing out of the hole, unfortunately. Like, it doesn't seem to matter how much RPM I give it. It wants to just sort of bog a little bit at first, and then that turbo starts to kick in, and then it really rolls. But when you first kind of bog it, it seems to cause you some time. So I don't think it's really getting the best times that it could. Let's try it. Yeah, it's boggy. There it goes. There comes all the power right there. When you first go in, and she's putting down some power now. It feels really good, and that's 80 miles an hour. So I mean, for a car with 305 horsepower, oh man, this thing feels so good. Getting it out of the hole is a real challenge. I really do feel like the only way to kind of get this thing to really come out of the hole is to just give it like 4,000 to 5,000 RPMs and literally just dump the clutch. Now, yes, it's doable. I've owned this car for 2 days. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to absolutely smoke my clutch. I'm just not willing to do it. But I feel like if I did that, the time would come down some and maybe be right on par with what the Hellcat can do, certainly on the street, or maybe close. But as it is, guys, this car just isn't as fast in a straight line, even with the traction issues that the Hellcat has. So really the big thing I've learned is that, you know, this car, because it has a smaller displacement, you know, motor, it is a little bit more of a challenge to kind of get it out of the hole hard without just giving it a ton of RPM and really kind of building the thing up. And I kind of pride myself as somebody who's pretty good at launching manual cars. As I mentioned to you guys in the past, I've had like, you know, 5 Corvettes, I've had a GTO, I've had a Camaro that was highly modded, I've had all these cars, but we're talking about big displacement motor cars, right? And you know, this one is just a completely different animal, so it is a little bit hard to kind of get this one out of the hole with any effectiveness without just giving it a ton of RPM and then just dumping the clutch, which is obviously, you know, that can tear up your drivetrain or your clutch or whatever else. And at this juncture, I'm not willing to do that, but the car is so much fun to drive. I really do have a good time driving this car. It's very rewarding in a straight line, as far as I'm concerned. Once it gets moving, once that turbo gets spooled up, it does pull really hard. And this is a stock car, so obviously with a tune and some downpipes, this thing could really wake up. But as it stands right now, even with the Hellcat acting like the damn Tasmanian devil, not being able to grab traction and just being a big brute, that thing is still faster than this thing is on the street, as far as I'm concerned. And then of course, once you hit about 60 miles an hour, when the car wants to start to grab, it will suck the paint off of this car. But this car is still a really cool little car. Well, I have to admit, it is a pretty darn cool time to be a car guy, gal, car person, because you can actually compare 300 horsepower cars to 1,000 horsepower cars. They've done so much with technology, and even though maybe it wasn't quite a fair comparison, the street, as we know, can be the equalizer. So definitely something to think about. But anyway, guys, it was fun bringing this to you. Let me know what you think about that comparison down in the comments below. Until next time, Racer X.